No, I want to know why are you trying to escape this question?
It's not interesting, relevant to the prompt, or
yes, it is,
adding to anything that Eden and I were talking about.
It's about science, and you said
yeah, the Bible's not a science textbook.
So
correct.
you believe that we were monkeys?
Yeah. I guess not really.
Then
That's
why
not
are
really.
monkeys here and why are we here at the same time?
Because
Can we have sex with monkeys and make little half monkey, half human babies?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So glad you're here for this one. Today we're sitting in on a panel where a liberal commentator named Kyla takes on a group of conservative women over one spicy claim, that Republicans are anti-science. What starts as a debate about dinosaurs and evolution quickly snowballs into vaccines, climate, energy, gender, and abortion. And one conservative voice in particular, Eden, holds her ground so well that by the end, even her opponent walks away impressed. Stick around all the way through, because the back half is where things get really interesting, and one exchange completely flips the script on who's actually following the science. Before we jump in, drop a comment and let me know what part of the world you're tuning in from. I genuinely love seeing how far this community reaches. All right, let's get into it.
Okay, so going back to some of the initial prompts. Yes, dinosaurs, not a flat earther. Believe in anthropological evolution, not the Big Bang. So I'm not a evolutionary scientist, so not going to debate the minutia of that. But this claim reminds me of the first claim, which is that it's very zero-sum. So I would say there are conservatives who interpret science and implement that differently in policy. And I would assume maybe, do you agree with that we can look at science and then
Of course, there's
disagree?
going to be individuals of every group that breach from the general norm. But I think the norm that I'm claiming is still reasonable.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so I would say as a conservative, gender, XX, XY, abortion, defining what a fetus is, that it's a child in the womb. Science is pretty much there.
That's
we look
not
at
science.
What a woman is.
A fetus literally means offspring.
Baby. Sure, but when we're talking about abortion, we're fundamentally talking about the philosophical question of personhood or the spiritual question of ensoulment.
I don't believe conservatives are anti-science. We're just arriving to different conclusions that are very much fueled by ideological differences. My point is even personhood in the womb, life starts at conception, and even viability continues through science to be younger and younger. Mm-hmm. We can look at climate activism and climate alarmism. There's differences in the data and science there. So,
but
you'll
probably agree with me that insurance companies for homeowners all now employ a climate scientist to figure out who they don't cover insurance for, right? So
yeah, but that's not
the insurance
debating,
companies seem to think it's real.
Debating.
It is.
I'm not denying that fossil fuel emissions slightly increase the warming of the planet. I'm not.
And that's what we're talking about when we talk about climate change.
No,
right?
I'm just saying that my antidote to that, my policy to it, is not unreliable sources of energy versus fossil fuels. But my point is,
what?
Well, solar and wind energy is not as reliable as fossil fuels that are necessary.
Wind, I would grant you. Solar is so vastly improved that it seems like it's just a real good. But really, the real option should be nuclear power plants. Obviously.
Sure, I can agree with that too.
Yeah.
So, but this has proven the point that conservatives are not anti-science.
You might not be anti-science, right? But that doesn't change that you're unfortunately part of a movement that denies vaccines efficacy. All of you deny evolution, right? There are some people. It seems like I wasn't sure if Trish even believed that dinosaurs walked the earth. I'm not totally sure. So I agree. There are always going to be people that break from the broad norm. But Republicans, broadly, they got Kennedy in office, right? He's so anti-science that one of his recent reports it was AI generated and it had AI ghost papers that was just never vetted, right? He's applying and putting vaccine skeptics in charge of it, despite promising multiple Republicans that he wouldn't do these things. He's cutting cancer research. He's cutting funding for, yes, he is cutting cancer research funding. This is just true. He has absolutely decimated scientific funding, right? And we have this thing where we go, well, when I say evolution, I mean adaptation over time, but I'm not an evo scientist. If you're not an evo scientist, that's fine, but then you should probably by and large go, well, probably the scientists have actually thought about this because you probably brush your teeth, you probably start your car, and you're probably not hyper-analyzing whether or not the scientists were right about these things. We only pick and choose political things and deny them, which is anti-science. Has the left engaged in some level of anti-science in the past? Yeah, especially particularly far left wings, but I would say dominantly, particularly in the last 30 years, the main champions of anti-scientific rhetoric, anti-scientific policy has been Republicans.
Okay. I think that two things can be true at the same time. I think that there are definitely people in our camp that deny certain fundamental scientific realities. And I also think the same thing can be said on your side. I mean, gender being one of them, or sex. I mean, you talk about us basically denying science for ideology, but your side's kind of been doing that. So I feel like if we can just grant each other that, like
Well,
you said radical. There's certain radical. You said there's certain far left things that deny science. What are those?
For example, a lot of the far left denies like IQ research dominantly. They don't think that's legitimate, and I think that that's anti-scientific to engage in that. That would be one like of the biggest ones that I think is a problem.
This is the moment the whole anti-science attack starts falling apart, and you can feel it happening in real time. Because watch what the conservative woman does here. She doesn't dodge. She walks straight into the hardest topics on purpose: abortion, climate, energy, and she reframes the entire thing in one move. When she says conservatives aren't anti-science, they're just arriving at different conclusions fueled by ideological differences. That is the sentence that should end the debate right there. You have to understand what she just did. She separated the science from the policy. Nobody on the left wants that distinction, because the second you accept it, the whole "you people hate facts" narrative collapses. And here's the part that blows my mind. She brings up insurance companies hiring climate scientists to decide who they will and won't cover. Think about how sharp that is. She's not denying climate data. She's using it against the assumption that conservatives reject it. That's not science denial. That's someone who actually read the room better than her opponent did. Then she drops the nuclear line. She says the real option should be nuclear power plants. And what does Kyla say? Sure, I can agree with that. Let me break down why that tiny moment matters so much. The accusation was that conservatives reject science on energy. But the conservative just offered the most scientifically backed clean energy source on the planet. And the liberal agreed. So who exactly is following the science here? And then, the cherry on top. Kyla admits the far left denies IQ research and calls it anti-scientific herself. She handed that over. That's the whole both sides do it argument, proven by her own mouth.
Okay, and so how does, again, back to the gender thing, the gender question. Of course, we believe that there are two genders, two sexes, male.
Well, most liberals, like almost everyone in my social camp agrees that there's two sexes.
Okay.
Right, with some dimorphism of like the weird disorders in between.
Okay.
Right. The real battle is gender, and gender isn't really a scientific conversation. It's unfortunately a cultural anthropological conversation, because when people are saying gender, they're meaning specifically not biological sex, the thing that emerges outside of it, like why men wore skirts and dresses and stuff in the past, and now it's not okay, but certain skirts, as long as they're masculine, as long as they're perceived socially masculine enough, are okay, right? That's what we want to talk about when we're talking about gender. The problem is that a lot of Republicans, as has happened, will straw man the trans conversation into just insisting that it's a denial of sex. Have some trans advocates denied sex as well? Yeah. I was never in their camp, and I think that it's silly and a bad thing to do.
Right, and if we can accept you saying that, then like why can't you accept us saying that people who deny dinosaurs? I think that's silly, and people who
this is a larger
deny
percentage of
the Earth
body.
Is flat, it's silly. So like we can a little middle ground here. Like I can totally respect your position that you feel this way, but like you can also give us a little bit of credit that. Yeah, the dinosaurs are real. The Earth was not flat.
Sure, but you all deny evolution and question things back.
Did you say
Hold on,
you're a Christian?
wait. No, I don't want you to go yet. Stop. Sure.
The prompt, like you said, is a zero-sum prompt.
It's not a zero-sum prompt, right? This is more. No, this is a
Republicans are
normative.
Science.
It's a normative prompt. Yeah. Yeah.
In science, there's critical thinking.
Okay, let me say this. Would we broadly agree that men and women mostly correspond to what their sex is as well? That a woman is going to also be a female and a man is broadly going to be a male? Can I make that normative general claim? Yeah. Can we also acknowledge that there are some people that have like XX disorders where the X doesn't present properly? So they're technically sexually a male by their chromosomes, but they actually demonstrate like vaginas and stuff like that.
You said you're a Christian, so do you believe in the Bible or you don't believe in the Bible?
I believe in the Bible.
The whole Bible?
I'm not a sola scriptura. I'm more like a Catholic in that way.
Okay, so don't you believe that man was created, man and woman?
Yeah, I don't think
and
the
the
Bible
animals,
is a
and
textbook.
then he.
Can I talk to Eden?
I want to know why are you trying to escape this question?
It's not interesting, relevant to the prompt, or
yes, it is,
adding to
because
anything
about
that
science.
Eden and I were talking about.
It's about science, and you said
yeah, the Bible's not a science textbook.
So
correct.
you believe that we were monkeys?
Yeah. I guess not really.
Then
That's
why
not
are
really.
monkeys here and why are we here at the same time?
Because
Can we have sex with monkeys and make little half monkey, half human babies?
Do you want me to walk you through the actual evolutionary science of like Homo sapiens? I can do it, right? We can talk about Homo Denisova,
do it.
but nobody actually wants this. That's why I didn't want to engage with you. That's why I want to talk to Eden.
Yeah, you don't want to talk to me because I just nailed it with you. That's why.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Tell yourself that.
think
Here's what people don't realize about this next stretch. Kyla tries to pivot to gender, and she accuses Republicans of strawmanning the trans conversation into a denial of sex. But notice she also admits that some trans advocates have denied biological sex and that it's silly and a bad thing to do. So she's standing there conceding point after point, and somehow this is supposed to be the side winning on science? You can't keep granting the other person's argument and still claim they're the irrational ones. And this is where the conservative does something really smart. She asks for basic fairness. She says, give us a little bit of credit, the dinosaurs are real, the earth was not flat. That's not a science denier talking. That's someone asking to be judged as an individual instead of a cartoon. And the response she gets is the same recycled, but you all deny evolution. That's the tell. When you can't engage the person in front of you, you retreat to the group stereotype. But this right here is the moment everything tips. When the conservative gets pressed on creation and evolution, she doesn't fold. She fires back and says, I want to know, why are you trying to escape this question? And the other side suddenly wants to switch debate partners. Let that sink in. The person accusing everyone else of dodging science is now physically trying to dodge the conversation. And then comes the line that ends it. She says, so you don't want to talk to me because I just nailed it with you. And honestly, she's not wrong. Because when you're winning an exchange, you don't ask to talk to somebody else. That only happens when the heat gets too high.
And I'm enjoying this. Like, I think that we can kind of find some middle ground here in this situation. But I do think, with the argument saying Republicans are anti-science. And then if we were to say, well, Democrats are anti-science because they don't accept that life begins at conception, whereas the science backs that, and then all of that stuff to dismiss the fact that it's murder. I mean, we disagree on these things, obviously. But in the end, I think that both of us have, or both camps, acknowledge science in our own respect. So to go off the prompt, Republicans are anti-science, that's kind of debunked in the fact that we believe dinosaurs walked the earth.
So a normative claim is not debunked just by people who don't fall into that normative claim, right? My issue with going well, both sides do this, I would say, yeah, but the problem is that you guys engage in I'm going to give it a random number, but maybe it's 80%, right? There is probably some anti-scientific belief that someone has that is Republican 80% of the time. There are very few Republicans that I meet where when I talk to them, I'm like, oh yeah, this person understands science, understands how it works, how to read methodology, but on top of that, actually engage scientifically in the world. Whereas, yeah, it does exist on the left. The problem is that it's 20%, if that. And that's kind of my problem is acting like these are the same. I think the major threat to scientific innovation, development, and the theory of science itself is most under threat by Republican policy, which is why I say Republicans are anti-science. And it's pithy, so it's good for a prompt. So.
I think maybe I wasn't best for this prompt because I probably could find nuance with you in between. I disagree with your claim about normativity because I think these broad sweeping claims is what leads to vast polarization, even just in policy conversation, and how to look at the science and then apply policy prescriptions to it. So, because you mentioned it's like brushing your teeth, you should just accept it. So from your worldview, because science is methodologically a pursuit of knowledge, and over time we see that medicines or different theories like a lobotomy was kind of a commonplace, innovative science, and then over time it proved that wasn't correct. So
it's still used today, but yeah.
Okay, but my example is that there are scientific methods or theories that have been proposed that have then further been debunked. So from your worldview, since you're kind of normatively saying that all conservatives reject that, what is a healthy challenge of the scientific method or stated scientific discoveries or hypotheses? Because do you just have to accept everything?
No, this is the beauty of science.
Right.
That's why I love it so much. Yes, I won't monologue, I promise. Science is a self-correcting machine. What is the counter to bad science? More science. That's one of the most integral things is that you don't presume conclusions, you build it up. The problem I have with Republicans is they presume conclusions and they have no scientific evidence to back up what they're saying. It's usually misunderstandings of scientific evidence, unfortunately.
And here's what I keep coming back to. The conservative makes the simplest, cleanest point of the entire night when she says the claim is basically debunked the moment you accept that they believe dinosaurs walked the earth. Because the original prompt wasn't some Republicans, it was a blanket statement. And a blanket statement only needs one clear exception to crack. Then watch the retreat. Kyla pulls out a number, 80%, and admits she's just making it up. She literally says it's a random number, and that's the part that should make everyone stop and think. You came in swinging a universal accusation, and now you're inventing percentages on the spot to defend it? That's not data. That's a vibe wearing a lab coat. And here's the bigger lesson, and it's actually a beautiful one historically. The whole engine of real science is humility. Centuries ago, the smartest minds were certain the sun revolved around the earth. They weren't stupid, they just hadn't been corrected yet. Science moved because people were willing to challenge the consensus, not worship it. So when the conservative warns that broad, sweeping claims lead to polarization, she's pointing at the exact attitude that has always slowed progress down. And the funniest part? Kyla ends by saying science is a self-correcting machine. The counter to bad science is more science. She's right, but that's the conservatives' entire point. Questioning, scrutinizing, refusing to just accept whatever you're handed, that is the scientific mindset. So the side that spent the night demanding obedience to consensus just accidentally defended the right to question it. You can't make this stuff up. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.